What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Exchange. My name is Tim, and today's episode we're going to dive into what happened in Week 12 college football. There's about 21, 22 teams possible for the playoffs. We're going to go through each one of those, and it starts right now. Okay, so Saturday happened. A lot unfolded. A lot of teams are out of the playoff picture now, and we're going to get into them. Starting with the ACC conference, we got Miami. So despite the recent loss to Georgia Tech, Miami's still a very good football team. We all know Cam Ward, and that team can compete with just about anybody. But they just have to show up. They can't have those slow starts. They do face Wake Forest, who's at 4-6. So I don't see any trouble there. But the opportunity is there for the Hurricanes to shake off the loss and get back to what they do best, and that is Cam Ward tearing it up offensively. Next up, no. Nope. Okay, so for the weakest part that Miami deals with is their defense and mostly their secondary, which is ranked like around 100 in college football. Cornerback Michelle Powell, who is their best defender, needs to be a leader and make sure his teammates like Elijah Alston, Wesley Basante, and Jaden Harris start playing lockdown D and not have teams like stick around. Like I said, the remaining schedule was Wake Forest and then at Syracuse. The at Syracuse might be a little bit of a tough one. Kyle McCord, you never know what they're going to do, and it's going to be their senior day. So look out for that. Next up, we got the SMU Mustangs. The Mustangs had a little bit of a scare with Boston College, but did get the win, which is their 7th in a row. Quarterback Kevin Jennings is averaging around 211 yards per game with a 12-5 touchdown to interception ratio. Running back Rashard Smith has had a few really good weeks running the ball after his performance, or lack thereof, in the Stanford game where he only recorded 67 yards, but only got 8 carries, so I wouldn't say that was like a bad day. I just really enjoyed watching this SMU team this year. I can't see what head coach Red Lashley can do with this team in the near and distant future. SMU's weakest feature, most of the games have become like high-scoring games. It's become like a shootout. That's not going to work in the latter part of the season, especially the playoffs going into it, or the ACC title game. You never know who's going to be. Like SMU and Miami, if it's a shootout game, I got to go with Miami. So the defense needs to stick up, or needs to stiffen up. That's what I'm trying to say. But they'll need to find a way to slow their opponents down, especially in the playoffs. Clemson. Clay Kubnek saved the Clemson Tiger season with a late touchdown run. I think it was like 50 yards, over 50 yards. But no, like it happened soon after Pitt took a 3-point lead, which if Pitt doesn't have all those red zone penalties that kept pushing it back, it happened on like 2 to 3 drives in a row. If they don't do that, if they clean it up and they score touchdowns, I like that. That's Pitt's game. Clemson doesn't come back from that. But Coach Dabo Swinney is getting a lot of criticism, or has gotten for a while, ever since this transfer portal. Like, he doesn't dip into it. He solely goes on just recruiting like normal. And people say you're going to get left behind if you don't adapt to the game. The game is changing. I'm pretty sure he's feeling really good right now with the way that he's been running this team. Weakness for Clemson. I feel they throw the ball too much. I'm not sure if it's like a lack of running the ball, because they do have a talented running back, Maffa, but freshman, he has up and down days. For instance, he had 128 yards and 26 carries, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns on the loss to Louisville. Yet in the Pitt game, what is it, 17 yards on 17 carries? You're averaging 1 yard per carry? Try to do that math in your head. But yeah, it's just the inconsistency of production from Maffa. Next, we got the Big 12. We're going to got BYU, Colorado, Arizona State, and Iowa State. Iowa State still in it. Very slim chance, though. BYU, the perfect season dream is now over, but the story isn't. Can BYU come back from the loss, run the last 2 games of the season, and ride this thing out to the Big 12 title game? Now, the weakness is their linebackers are gullible. They get tripped up with screens, play action passes. They get sucked in. Crossing receivers get behind them, and then it's bad. It happens a lot to their linebacking group. Next, Colorado. They also had a little bit of a scare with Utah. They pulled away late. Shedeur Sanders put together a perfect fourth quarter with 3 touchdown drives, throwing over 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm not sure if there's any team in the Big 12 right now rolling as much as Colorado is right now. Colorado's weakness might be a surprise to some of y'all, not for me, but it's their ego. And coming from a team that has Deion Sanders as the coach, but their weakness is their ego. I was like, sure, it's good to have it as a mindset that nobody can score against you, but as you've seen Saturday, it even happens to the predicted number 1 draft pick, Travis Hunter. He got beat deep, and it quickly frustrated him. I don't know what that's going to do. If it keeps on happening, is it going to get in his head? I think Travis Hunter's a capable player just to get mad, frustrated, let it go, on to the next. But too much ego is technically not a good thing, and it's just, I don't know. It's good, but it's not. Because then you feel invincible, and then you get knocked in the mouth, and then you start panicking. So, I don't like it. Arizona State. Like I said, Colorado is... There's not a team rolling like them right now, but Arizona State's right behind Colorado in the Big 12. They're climbing in the vehicle and getting ready to take over control of their destiny. The weakness is slow starts. Arizona State gets slow starts against good teams, and it's hard for them to come back. They have a hard time climbing out of that hole. And getting towards the end of the season and into the playoffs, that can't happen anymore. Especially if they do make it to the Big 12 championship game. Absolutely not. You need to come firing out on all cylinders because it's either going to be BYU or Colorado. None of those teams you can do that to. Iowa State. Iowa needs some help, a lot of help, to get into the title game. They still have Utah, who can compete with anyone, with quarterback Isaac Wilson kind of getting more comfortable in that role. And we definitely seen it in the Colorado game. Isaac Wilson was throwing it. Their weakness, their defensive line isn't stopping the run. Say the weakest part of the team. If not, it would have to be their run game. Either way, run defense or running the ball. You can't have both being bad, and right now they do. They can throw the ball, sure. They can score, but if you're not taking time off the clock with long sustained drives running the ball, you're allowing teams to get right back in it with you. So they need to run the ball. All right, Big Ten. Oregon, going to start there. Another team coming off a close game. The Oregon Ducks with Wisconsin Badgers. Who saw that coming? I thought that was going to be a blowout. But Oregon, welcome to the Big Ten, where a lot of these games, they're close. They're close. You're not going to just outscore everyone in this conference. Let's see. But thankfully, we're playing the Badgers with the way that Oregon came out. We haven't seen them come out this sluggish since week 1 against Idaho and week 2 or 3 Boise State. But, yeah, They're just letting teams stick around in striking distance. Can't have it. Move on. Get better. Weakness, as I said before, slow starts. That's it. That's Oregon's weakness. All right, Indiana. Indiana. Who doesn't love Indiana's Cinderella story this year? Curt Cignetti signed like an 8-year extension. That's congratulations, but that's insane for Indiana to do that with just going 10-0. You haven't played anybody yet. You're playing Ohio State. I would have waited to see what his squad would have done to Ohio State. Get that good game test out of the way. But yeah, I hope the story does not end. They have not gone undefeated since, when was it? 1945, when Indiana went 9-0-1. So not a perfect record, but an undefeated record. And that was Coach Bo McMillan. Wow. Okay. The weakness. I said it before. This team is untested. This team is... I think their biggest win was Michigan. It was 20-15. We did get a chance to see how good this Indiana team is in the week when they take on the Buckeyes. That is what I'm interested in. How good is this team against Ohio State? Yeah. All right, let's see. Oh, and then Ohio State. We got to talk about Ohio State. The Buckeyes are second ranked in the AP poll and second in the playoff rankings, and for good reason. They're a talented team. Their only loss was to a 1-point loss to the number 1 team in the Oregon Ducks. So, Will Howard, when everything was going down, Ohio State was supposed to be getting highly touted number 1, I think he was the number 1 quarterback recruit, Dylan Raiola. Decided to decommit from Ohio State, go to Nebraska. Ohio State, panicking. Kyle McCord went to Syracuse. What are they going to do? Will Howard comes in, saves the day. People didn't like it. People want to see maybe what else do we got on our roster? I mean, we recruited all these highly touted players. Why are we getting Will Howard? And right now, people are kind of liking the decision. He's thrown for over 2,400 yards, 24 touchdowns, 5th in the country, 5 interceptions. He's been sacked only 9 times, lost only 1 fumble. With targets like Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Mbuka, and Carnell Tate, Howard is set to add more to these numbers, and the sky's the limit with this offense. Now, the defense is progressively getting a little bit better. They're not making big leaps into getting better, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Penn State, they still have a shot. The Nittany Lions are far from the picture, but not out of the gallery, if that makes any sense. With a loss to Ohio State, it's going to be hard to leap over them. Their only hope is that Indiana loses to the Buckeyes, and then Michigan beats the Buckeyes in the last game of the year. But they would also have to win their 2 remaining games. But then it would have to come between a tiebreaker between Penn State and Indiana. Now, what that tiebreaker is, we don't know yet. We got to wait for the other 2 games to be played. But their weakness is protection for Drew Aller. Drew Aller has been had issues with. He doesn't get sacked. Like, he's only been sacked 9 times, but he's been rushed and hurried a lot, and which leads to the mistakes that he has, like the ones that he had against Ohio State. All right, now independent. Notre Dame, the only independent on here that could probably get in. The number 8 Fighting Irish have a simple path to the playoffs after an easy win over Virginia on Saturday. They're in if they keep winning. Notre Dame has an undefeated Army at Yankee Stadium in Week 13 and then finishes the season at USC. That team could need a win to be bowl eligible if it loses to UCLA next week. Could you imagine if Notre Dame was the team to keep USC from going to a bowl? Our rival, like Notre Dame's rival, USC, gets to keep them from going to a bowl. Now, UCLA still needs to beat USC this week, but still, that'd be bittersweet. Let's see. Let's get into the SEC now. Texas and Texas A&M. The winner of the last game of the season between these two teams will most likely make it to the championship, of the SEC championship title game. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Alabama, once again, not out of the picture with their key wins the last couple of weeks, not including this week where they played Mercer. Good job. You beat the crap out of a team that I don't even know where they're from. Put it up here. The weakness, themselves. I've said it multiple times on this program. They shoot themselves in the foot. They make stupid penalties. They give up penalty yards. It's just themselves. Themselves are the biggest weakness with making stupid penalties. That's it. But if somehow they could survive the last 2 weeks against Oklahoma and then Auburn, the Crimson Tide is back in the SEC title game once again, but this time with Kalen DeBoer, not Nick Saban. Ole Miss will need to make the title game to make the playoffs. I don't think they can make it in solely on just their record. They need a title win. It's gonna be weird what comes out of this SEC because they're gonna be. I'm assuming they're gonna be ranked 4th in the top 4 because you got Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana. They're gonna be probably at 1 loss, maybe 2. I don't see 2 losses coming out of the Big Ten. It's going to be weird how they're going to have a 2-loss conference champion possibly. No, for sure. There's not. Well, 9-1. 9-1, Texas. Let's see. Tennessee. The Volunteers were looking good. They were looking good until that Georgia game. Came out strong, fast, quick, scored. And then Georgia was like, no, that's enough. We've had it. Then Carson Beck, I mean, what can you say about him? He balled out when he needed to. Let's see, group of 5 teams. We got Army. Army will be tested this week when they take on Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium in order for them to make it in. Even if they do, I don't know if you put Army in that 12th spot over Boise State or Boise State. We'll just say Boise State because that's the only other team that I really see going to that 12th seed. Tulane. Tulane, speaking of that, they just buried Navy. Like, I thought Navy was good enough to stay with Tulane, but no. That was a shutout. All right, big winners of the week. We got Florida. The Gators surprised everyone when they took down LSU. Big thanks to the Gators defensive line who produced 7 sacks in the game. That's insane. Also, Brian Kelly. Is this the last season that we're going to see Brian Kelly at LSU? Another winner, Arizona State. When they needed a big win versus a Big 12 conference contender, they got that by beating Kansas State. Air Force, with a season not many people would hope for, a 3-7 record, they needed to end the season on a good note, and beating Oregon State was a good stepping stone to end on a good note. Not only did they beat them 38-0. So, Oregon State last year, a little bit on the mix in the playoffs. This year, not so much. Okay, so before we were rudely interrupted by a phone call, losers of the week, Brian Kelly. Now, we're still going to say what I said before, but we're still going to go through it. Could this be the end of Brian Kelly's era at Baton Rouge? With many expecting titles coming from the head coach of the LSU Tigers and have come up empty, the last SEC title coming from LSU, or going to LSU, was back in 2019 when Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, some other players were there too. I don't know, just those two. That's back when they played, won the national championship. Kelly took over. Nothing. So, yeah. Another one, Pitt. Pitt. They had a chance to take Clemson out of the ACC title run, and they let Cade Klubnik literally run right down their throats for 50 yards. 50 plus, whatever it was. Yeah. Sad day. Sad day for Pitt and Pitt fans. But I'm not one of them, so let's get into the picks. Wake Forest versus Miami. Got to take Miami. Ole Miss versus Florida. Florida coming off that big win over LSU. Ole Miss coming to town. They're needing to win. Florida kind of got a little bit of taste of spoiler in their mouth. They might do it again. I'm taking Florida. Upset Ole Miss. SMU versus Virginia. Virginia's doing the same thing. I saw some good things, a lot of bad things with Virginia and Notre Dame games. So I'm going to go ahead with SMU. UMass, who just fired their coach, facing Georgia. Not a good time to be doing that. Georgia. UTEP versus Tennessee. Tennessee needing a bounce back game. The Citadel versus Clemson. I'm not taking the Citadel. Clemson. Penn State versus Minnesota. At Minnesota. All right, put it up. Bold prediction. Here we go. I'm taking Minnesota over Penn State. Yep. Gotta do it. Gotta do it. Kentucky versus Texas. I'm going to go ahead and take Texas. BYU versus Arizona State. It's a close game, but BYU is going to come out on top. It's going to be close. That's going to be a good game. Colorado versus Kansas. Kansas being a little spoiler, or season spoiler as well. Not this week, though. Colorado. Pitt versus Louisville. I'm taking Louisville. Pitt's stumbling right now, and I don't think they can recover in a week. Wolford versus South Carolina. I think that's how you say that. I'm taking South Carolina. Doesn't matter. Missouri versus Mississippi State. I'm going to take Mississippi State. Got to. Feel it. Boise State versus Wyoming. Taking Boise State. Washington State versus Oregon State. Washington State. They stumbled last week against New Mexico. I think it was New Mexico. They're not making the playoffs. We know that. But they can make a decent bowl game. But not if they lose Oregon State. Texas A&M versus Auburn. Even though it's at Auburn, taking Texas A&M. Alabama versus Oklahoma. It's going to start out close. Then Alabama's just going to go. Notre Dame versus Army. Yankee Stadium. Shamrock Series. Taking Notre Dame. First half's going to be close. Second half, Notre Dame starts to pull away in that fourth quarter. Notre Dame just puts it away. Easy. Indiana versus Ohio State. Here we go. I've been thinking about this one since last week. And I still have not come to a conclusion on who I'm taking here. Let me think on it real quick. Just real quick. I'm taking the Buckeyes. I'm sorry, Indiana fans. I said I wouldn't go against you the rest of the season. And you know what? I'm going to keep my word. Indiana, for not believing in you, I thought Nebraska would win this game. No, you guys are going a lot farther than I thought.
They are. So, yeah, Indiana's doing pretty good.
I'm not doubting Indiana again. I'm going to keep my word. No, scratch that. Indiana, Hoosiers, upset Ohio State in Buckeye Nation. So, look out for that game. I feel like I made a mistake, but I can't go against my word. I just reminded myself that I said that. But no, sticking with the Hoosiers, rest of the season, let's go. Alright, that is up for the picks. Now, the college football wrap up playoff seeding prediction. It happens tomorrow night. When I have this uploaded, it'll be this day, probably in the next few hours. But I'm going to go ahead and give my predictions where the playoff committee is going to put these teams. Number 1, Oregon. Nothing changed. They had a little bit of a scare, still a win, still a really good team. Number 1. Number 2, Ohio State. 3, Texas, big win. Can't move anywhere. Number 4, Penn State. Number 5, Indiana. Here we go. This is where we mix it up. Number 6, Notre Dame. Good win. Other teams falling that were above them, they go up there. Number 7, Georgia. Big win over Tennessee. They jump up there. Number 8, Alabama. Number 9, Miami. 10, BYU. 11, Boise State. 12, Ole Miss. Now, just gotta wait till tomorrow night, see how close I was. I think I'm pretty solid with the top 5. But 6 all the way through 12, I don't know. We'll see. But that's going to do it for this show. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video. Check the description. The link from a Facebook account will be down there as well. Try to get some other people on this show. Tyler's. Hopefully we get him back. Hopefully. We just gotta link our schedule. But yeah, we'll see you then.